Do you hear it? The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten truths, fragments of memories lost in the shadows. Welcome to BRAINROT, Echoes, where we bring you stories long buried, unravel mysteries cloaked by time, and guide you through the darkest corners of the mind and the universe. Each video is more than just content. It's an echo resonating deep within, urging you to question, to wonder, to explore. Backend index pointing right, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us in listening to the echoes the world tried to silence. The Heretic Doctor and the Interstellar Alliance. You're sticking one into my thoracic cavity. Commander Voth's voice, a giant chitin-skinned being with multifaceted eyes, rose to a shrill pitch that nearly blew out the translation device clipped to Dr. Lena Rostova's collar. It's called a chest tube, and unless you want your right lung to completely collapse, I'm going to sit still and let me do my job. Lena held up the medical instrument with practiced ease, one eyebrow raised in that universal expression that medical professionals across the galaxy seem to perfect, a blend of compassion and don't-test-me authority. Voth, all 10 feet of scaled aggression, somehow managed to look both disenchanted and indignant as its auxiliary breathing spines fluttered in distress. Your primitive human instruments are not compatible with superior Cthar physiology. Lena snorted. Yeah, and your superior physiology is currently drowning in its own fluids because someone decided to charge headfirst into a Signian plasma barrage. She gestured to the hastily erected field hospital around them, where a dozen other Cthar warriors lay on makeshift beds, casualties of the latest skirmish in this ridiculous interstellar conflict. Now, do you want to breathe properly again, or shall I find another patient who appreciates my primitive medical expertise? The command tent fell silent, except for the soft beeping of medical equipment and the distant sound of artillery fire. The remaining conscious Cthar warriors watched with compound eyes wide as their fearsome commander, a being responsible for the conquest of 3-star systems, was being stared down by a human female barely reaching his shoulder. Proceed. The commander finally grunted, mandibles clicking in resignation. Smart choice, Lena championed, then raised her voice to address the wide-eyed Cthar medic observing nearby. You, yes you, with the extra appendages. Come here and learn something useful. And that, as they say, was just another Tuesday for Lena Rostova, the only human doctor captured in the Cthar-Signian conflict who, instead of becoming a prisoner, somehow became the most feared and respected healer in the Outer Quadrant. Lena Rostova hadn't planned on becoming an interspecies medical legend. 6 months ago, she'd been happily running a small emergency clinic on Proxima Colony B, treating everything from mining accidents to the occasional exotic alien disease contracted by overenthusiastic xenobiologists. Well, happily might be overselling it. The colonial administration's budget cuts had left her chronically understaffed and under-equipped. But she managed. She always managed. Then the Cthar Dominion decided that Proxima's rich deuterium deposits looked particularly appealing and launched what they euphemistically called a resource acquisition initiative. Everyone else called it an invasion. The attack had come during Lena's night shift. One moment, she was suturing a dock worker's hand laceration. The next, the building was shaking under orbital bombardment. She'd evacuated as many patients as possible, grabbed her emergency medkit, and headed for the colony's defensive bunkers. She never made it. A Cthar dropship had landed between her and safety, disgorging a platoon of battle-ready warriors. In the chaos that followed, Lena found herself being dragged aboard the alien vessel as it lifted off. Most sensible reaction would have been abject terror, Lena later explained to a captivated audience of junior Cthar medics. Instead, I saw their field medic completely botching a pressure dressing on a wounded soldier and lost my professional mind. The Cthar version of the story, now told with considerable embellishment around Dominion campfires, described how a diminutive human female had stormed across the dropship bay, slapped aside a trained Cthar battlefield surgeon, and saved a high-ranking officer's life using nothing but a medical kit and creative profanity. What both versions agreed upon was the outcome. Instead of becoming a standard prisoner of war, Lena Rostova became something far stranger, a reluctant but invaluable medical asset to the Cathar war machine. For the last time, Commander Kryak, your warriors need rest. Lena crossed her arms, fearless of being intimidated by the towering Cathar looming over her makeshift desk. The Dominion requires their service. The next assault begins at dawn. Kristak growled, slamming a clawed hand onto the surface hard enough to make her coffee mug bounce. The Dominion can kiss my ass, Lena replied calmly, taking a sip from said mug. These soldiers have acute radiation poisoning from those Signian defense grids. Without proper treatment and rest, they'll be dead officers before they reach the battlefield. Insolence. I could have you executed. You could try, Lena agreed pleasantly. But then who would keep your elite shock troops from melting from the inside out? Your own medics still can't tell radiation sickness from seasonal molting. A dangerous silence followed. Around them, the medical tent stilled as both human and Cathar staff pretended very hard to be focused on their tasks while actually eavesdropping shamelessly. Commander Kristak's secondary heart valve made the distinctive clicking sound that Lena had learned indicated extreme frustration. The High Command will hear of this obstruction. Excellent. While you're at it, tell them I need more anti-radiation meds and proper diagnostic equipment. Oh, and coffee. Real coffee. Not that synthesizer swill your requisitions keep sending. She made a show of checking her datapad. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have 16 patients who need treatment. The assault will have to wait 48 hours. The Cathar commander stormed out, chitinous armor plates flaring in indignation. Dr. Resva, a young Cathar physician who had become something of Lena's protege, asked cautiously, Medical Director Walsh, perhaps antagonizing the military command is unwise. Lena grinned. That wasn't antagonism. That was establishing professional boundaries. In my culture, such defiance toward a superior. In medicine, there are no superiors except medical necessity, Lena interrupted, handing Resva a stack of patient charts. Besides, Commander Christo secretly appreciates having someone give him straight answers. Most of his subordinates are too dismayed to tell him when his might ideas get his troops killed unnecessarily. Resva's head tilted in the Cathar expression of confusion. How can you be certain? Because, Lena said, pulling on sterile gloves, the assault has already been postponed by exactly 48 hours. The order came through while he was busy yelling at me. The young Cathar's compound eyes blinked rapidly. Then why did he? Theater? Dr. Resva, leadership is part medicine, part theater, Lena winked. Now let's see about those radiation patients. Word spread quickly throughout the Cathar forces about the human medical director who fearlessly faced down commanding officers, performed medical miracles with limited supplies, and somehow managed to increase battlefield survival rates by 43% in her first month of captivity. The Cathar, for all their militaristic bluster, regarded results. And results were exactly what Lena delivered. She instituted proper triage protocols, trained Cathar medics in techniques they'd never considered, their own medical traditions being heavily focused on honorable death rather than prevention, and introduced the revolutionary concept of sterilizing equipment between patients. Your species has faster-than-light travel, but doesn't understand germ theory, she'd exclaimed during her first week, horrified at watching a Cathar surgeon move from patient to patient without changing gloves. Cathar immune systems are robust, the chief medical officer had replied stiffly. Not against cross-contamination, they're not. Lena had shot back, shoving a microscope at him. Look at this culture I grew from your sterilized scalpel. Go on, look. 3 days later, after a wave of infections mysteriously cleared up following implementation of her protocols, Lena found herself with significantly more authority in the medical division. But it wasn't until the Battle of Signian Ridge that her legend truly began to take shape. The Signian, unlike the main humanoid races of the Galactic Arm, were sentient crystalline entities whose natural defense mechanisms included emitting focused radiation bursts when threatened. Their alliance with the human colonies had turned the tide of what should have been a quick Cathar victory into a protracted conflict. When a Signian counterattack left hundreds of Cathar warriors with wounds unlike anything their medics had seen before, Lena found herself faced with a medical crisis of unprecedented proportions. "What do you mean you've never seen crystal shards that grow inside the body?" Lena demanded, examining a writhing Cthar soldier whose arm was turning an alarming shade of translucent blue where crystalline fragments had embedded themselves. "Signian biological warfare is unexpected," admitted Chief Medical Officer Drothker. "Our intelligence suggested they were primarily defensive life forms." "Well, your intelligence was wrong," Lena snapped, scanning the soldier with her modified tricorder. "These aren't just shards. They're alive. They're reproducing inside the tissue." She looked up at the increasingly crowded medical bay. "We have maybe less than hours before we lose everyone who was exposed." For the first time since she'd known him, Drothker looked truly afraid. "What is your recommendation, medical director?" Lena took a deep breath. "I need to try something radical. Give me access to your ship's ultrasonic cleaning equipment, all the ethanol you can find. And," she paused, calculating, "about 20 volunteers who aren't squeamish about experimental procedures." 6 hours later, Lena had developed a treatment protocol involving precisely calibrated ultrasonic pulses that shattered the crystalline growths without damaging Cthar tissue, followed by ethanol flushes to prevent regrowth. It wasn't elegant, and it was certainly painful, but it worked. As she finished treating the last critical patient, Commander Christ himself appeared at her side. Lena was too exhausted to even attempt her usual bravado. "If you're here to complain about the unorthodox methods," she mumbled, struggling to stay upright after nearly 30 hours without sleep, "it can wait until morning." To her surprise, the commander placed a steadying claw on her shoulder. "The Dominion does not forget those who preserve its warriors," he said formally. Then, in a lower tone, "Nor do I, Lena Rostova." It was the first time any of them had used her first name. The next day, her status changed officially from valuable prisoner to honorable medical advisor, complete with proper quarters, a staff of her choosing, and most importantly, real coffee. "You want me to do what?" Lena stared incredulously at High General Vrax, the imposing Cthar who commanded the entire invasion force. "Join the diplomatic delegation to the Signian Collective," the general repeated, as if requesting something perfectly reasonable. "Our intelligence suggests they respect medical practitioners and consider them neutral parties. Your presence could facilitate negotiations." "Let me get this straight," Lena said slowly. "You invaded their allies. You've been trying to take their territory for months, and now you want me, a human you captured, to help you negotiate with them?" "Precisely." General Vrax seemed pleased that she understood. Lena pinched the bridge of her nose. "And it doesn't strike you as problematic that I'm, human, like the people you're currently at war with?" "That is exactly why you are ideal," the general explained, mandibles clicking in what Lena had come to recognize as his version of a smug smile. "The Signian will see that even our former adversaries now serve the Dominion willingly." "I don't serve the—" Lena began hotly, then stopped herself. After months in Cthar custody, she'd learned when to pick her battles. This could possibly be an opportunity. What exactly would this diplomatic mission entail? The general's compound eyes gleamed. "The Signian have requested medical aid for civilian populations affected by the conflict. We have agreed to provide it under your direction." Lena felt her anger falter. Civilian casualties. This was the first she'd heard of the war's impact beyond military engagements. "Are there many injured?" "Reports indicating significant numbers. Their crystalline physiologies are complicated. Their own healers are overwhelmed." A long silence stretched between them as Lena considered her options. She had built something akin to respect among the Cthar. Her patients received proper care. She had even managed to implement changes that saved lives on both sides when Cthar troops brought in human prisoners. But this was different. This was a chance to see beyond the Cthar military machine, to potentially help end a conflict that never should have started. "I'll go," she said finally, "on one condition." General Vrax's posture stiffened. "The Dominion does not accept conditions from. You'll release any remaining human medical personnel you've captured," Lena interrupted. "And you'll allow me to bring a team of my choosing, including Dr. Resva." The general's breathing secondary slits flared in surprise. You wish to bring a Kthar physician to treat Signian? If we're really talking about peace, Lena said firmly, then it starts with medicine. Showing that both humans and Kthar can work together to heal might actually convince them you're serious. For a tense moment, she thought she'd overplayed her hand. Then, to her astonishment, General Vrax made the formal Kthar gesture of respect, a movement she'd never seen directed at any non-Kthar before. Your wisdom is unexpected, he said. Your terms are accepted. As he turned to leave, Lena called after him. One more thing, General. I want my own coffee machine. The good one they confiscated from the colony governor's office. This time, she was certain the clicking sound he made was laughing. The diplomatic mission to Signian territory proved more complex than anyone had anticipated. For one thing, the Signian themselves existed in a state that made conventional communication challenging. Their crystalline bodies resonated at frequencies that standard translation devices struggled to interpret. For another, they were legitimately terrifying when agitated. Don't move, Lena whispered to Resva as a towering Signian elder vibrated before them, its faceted body emitting pulses of light that the translators were desperately trying to decode. Sudden movements make them think you're initiating a frequency challenge. How do you know this? The young Kthar doctor hissed back, frozen in place. I dated a xenobiologist on Proxima. She specialized in crystalline life forms. Lena maintained her calm smile while addressing the Signian. Honored elder, perhaps we could adjust our communication devices to better resonate with your preferred frequency. A series of chimes emanated from the being, which their translator finally managed to convert. The human understands. The Kthar does not. This is as we expected. Lena suppressed a sigh. With respect, Elder, Dr. Resva is here to learn. The Kthar wished to understand. Understanding comes after restitution. Now they were getting somewhere. Yes, absolutely. And we've brought medical supplies as the first step of that restitution. May we see those who need treatment. The Signian elder vibrated at a frequency that made Lena's teeth ache before responding. Follow. As they were led deeper into the crystalline city, a breathtaking structure that appeared to have been grown rather than built. Lena whispered to Resva, remember, their physiology operates on principles of resonance and harmonic maintenance. Injuries disrupt their natural frequencies. Like sound healing, but literal, Resva murmured, a surprised look from Lena. You've been studying? The Kthar doctor's head dipped in an embarrassed gesture. Your approach to cross-species medicine is compelling. I accessed the human databases you brought. Lena felt an unexpected surge of pride. Well, prepare to put theory into practice. We're about to make history. The first joint human-Kthar medical team to treat Signian. What they found in the Signian equivalent of a hospital shattered any remaining professional detachment Lena might have maintained. Hundreds of crystalline beings lay in various states of fracture and disharmony. Many of them smaller than the adults, clearly juveniles. Children, she breathed, horrified. They brought their children to a war zone. Signian do not distinguish location for growth phases, their guide chimed. All are part of the collective. All resonate together. Lena exchanged glances with Resva, seeing her own shock mirrored in the Kthar's compound eyes. Whatever their differences, they shared the same immediate reaction. These patients needed help, regardless of species or politics. We need to establish a triage system, Lena said, slipping automatically into emergency director mode. Resva, set up our diagnostic equipment. We'll start with the most severe fractured stress patterns. What followed was perhaps the most challenging and innovative medical work of Lena's career. Signian physiology required completely rethinking basic medical principles. They didn't bleed. They fractured. They didn't need sutures. They needed precise resonance therapy to encourage regrowth along proper crystalline planes. For 3 days, Lena and Resva worked with minimal rest, developing protocols on the fly and training the Signian healers in techniques that combine the best of human intuition and Kthar precision. On the 4th day, as Lena was calibrating a modified sonic emitter to help a young Cygnian reestablish its core resonance. She became aware of a delegation of Cthar and Cygnian officials observing her work. "Don't mind me," she called over her shoulder, not looking up from her patient. "Just rebuilding a fractured consciousness matrix with spare parts and caffeine addiction." An amused chiming sound caught her attention. The Cygnian elder from their arrival, standing with Commander Christak and another Cthar she didn't recognize. "The human healer demonstrates the possibility of harmony between discord and frequencies," the elder chimed. "This is unexpected." Commander Krydo made the formal Cthar gesture of respect. Medical Director Walsh has a habit of achieving the unexpected. Lena carefully finished stabilizing her patient before turning to face them. "If you're here for a progress report, we've successfully treated 67 critical cases and established protocols for another 112. Dr. Resva has been exceptional." The unknown Cthar stepped forward. "I am Diplomat Envoy Thaxel. I come with news from the peace negotiations." Lena tensed. "And the Cygnian Collective has agreed to preliminary terms, including Cthar withdrawal from disputed territories in exchange for limited resource sharing agreements." The diplomat's voice held a note of genuine surprise. They cited the success of our joint medical initiative as evidence of potential for coexistence. Lena looked between the Cthar and Cygnian delegates, suddenly understanding her role in a much larger game. She had been brought here not just as a doctor, but as living proof that cooperation was possible. "Well," she said, finding herself at a rare loss for words, "I guess medicine really is the universal language." "Not universal," chimed the Cygnian elder, "but a frequency all can learn to resonate with." News of the peace agreement spread quickly through both Cthar and human territories. Lena found herself in the unexpected position of minor celebrity, the captured medic whose work had helped end an interstellar conflict. When the time came to return to Proxima Colony, she found herself strangely conflicted. "You could remain with the Dominion," Commander Kryak suggested during their final meeting. "Your position as medical director could be made permanent. The Cthar High Command has authorized me to offer you full citizenship." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Me? A Cthar citizen? 6 months ago, you were invading my home." The commander's mandibles flexed in what she now recognized as embarrassment. "The Dominion re-evaluates its positions based on new data. A polite way of saying you realize this war was a terrible idea," Lena replied, but without her usual edge. "Perhaps." Christo straightened to his full height. "Your methods have changed much about Cthar medical practice. Our battlefield survival rates have improved by 72% under your protocols. This matters." Lena felt an unexpected lump in her throat. "Is the fearsome Commander Christo actually saying he'll miss me?" "I am saying," the Cthar replied carefully, "that you have earned a place of honor among us. Few non-Cthar can claim such distinction." Lena looked around the medical bay she had transformed from a primitive field hospital into a state-of-the-art facility. She thought of Dr. Resva and the other Cthar medics she had trained, of the lives saved on both sides of the conflict. "I have to go home," she said finally. "My place is with my people." But she hesitated, then continued, "I would be open to establishing an ongoing exchange program. Cthar medics could train at Proxima. Humans could learn here. We've only scratched the surface of what we can learn from each other." Commander Kryak's compound eyes gleamed with what might have been approval. "A continuation of your work by other means. The High Command will agree to this." As if suddenly reminding himself, he added gruffly, "The Dominion values efficient knowledge transfer." Lena grinned. "Of course, purely for tactical advantage. Nothing to do with saving lives." "Precisely." But his secondary breathing slits fluttered in what she now knew was the Cthar equivalent of suppressed amusement. The transport back to Proxima Colony felt surreal after months aboard Cthar vessels. Human voices, human food, human customs, all simultaneously familiar and strange. Lena sat alone by a viewport, watching the stars streak by and nursing a cup of actual, non-replicated coffee. A parting gift from General Vrax himself, who had apparently taken her coffee complaint seriously enough to import a genuine Earth-grown supply. Dr. Walsh? A hesitant voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find a young human officer standing nervously beside her table. "That's me," she confirmed, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. "Something I can help you with?" The officer sat stiffly. "Ma'am, I've been assigned to debrief you about your time with Icthar. Standard protocol for all returned personnel." Lena sipped her coffee. "Go ahead." "Well, the officer fidgeted with his data pad. "We're particularly interested in any technical or strategic information you might have gathered. Weapon systems, fleet movements, command structures, anything that might prove useful if hostilities resume." Lena studied him for a long moment, taking in his eager expression and the way his fingers hovered over the recording function. "Let me save us both some time," she said finally. "I'm a doctor. I took an oath to do no harm. I'm not going to provide military intelligence that could restart a war we just managed to end." The officer's expression fell. "Ma'am, with all due respect, you are a prisoner of war. Your loyalty—" "My loyalty," Lena interrupted firmly, "is to my patients. And for the past 6 months, those patients included Cthar, Sigmian, and yes, humans too. I treated everyone I could, regardless of which side they fought for. But surely you must have observed. That war is equally stupid in any language," Lena said, setting down her cup. "I observed that soldiers on both sides bled the same, feared the same, and wanted to live just as desperately as each other." The officer looked deeply confused. "The official report says you became the most feared healer in the Outer Quadrant. That doesn't sound like someone who was just treating patients." At this, Lena couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, that? Do you know why they fear me? Because I refuse to let anyone, commander, soldier, or politician, interfere with proper medical care. I forced hand-washing. I demanded adequate rest periods. I insisted on treating enemies with the same priority as allies." She leaned forward. "Apparently, that's terrifying to military types across the galaxy." The young officer stared at her for a long moment before finally closing his datapad. "This isn't going to be a standard debriefing, is it?" "No." Lena pulled a data crystal from her pocket and slid it across the table. "But this might be more useful than whatever intelligence report you were hoping for. It's a complete medical database I compiled. Treatment protocols for Cthar and Sigmian physiologies, cross-species compatibility charts, and emergency field procedures that work across all 3 species." The officer picked up the crystal cautiously. "Medical information? The kind that saves lives, regardless of who's fighting whom," Lena confirmed. "And the foundation for the interspecies medical exchange program that's part of the peace treaty." Understanding dawned slowly on the officer's face. "You're not just coming home, you're bringing something back." "Knowledge always beats weapons," Lena said, raising her coffee cup in a small toast. "And healing beats the hell out of pain. That's what I learned as a captive doctor in an alien war." The officer slipped the data crystal into his uniform pocket. "I'll make sure this gets to the right person." "Good." Lena turned back to the viewport, watching as the familiar star patterns of the Proxima system came into view. "Because believe me, fostering interspecies medical cooperation is a far better use of our time than debriefing me about Cthar weaknesses." As the application yanked, Lena's personal communicator chimed with an incoming message. It was from Dr. Resva, already forwarding requests from Cthar medical students eager to participate in the exchange program. Lena smiled to herself. 6 months ago, she'd been dragged reluctantly into an alien war. Now she was coming home with a peace treaty, revolutionary medical knowledge, and the somewhat bizarre distinction of being the most feared and respected healer in the quadrant. Not a bad outcome for an emergency clinic doctor from a backwater human colony. She raised her coffee cup once more, this time to the stars themselves. "To medicine," she murmured, "the true final frontier." The official reception at Proxima Colony's main spaceport was larger than Lena had anticipated. Colonial officials, military personnel, medical staff, and a surprising number of civilians gathered to welcome home the doctor whose unexpected diplomacy had helped end the conflict. "I'm not a hero," she protested to the colony governor as they walked from the landing pad. "I'm just a doctor who refused to let anyone die unnecessarily human, Cthar, or otherwise. Governor Landry smiled. Sometimes that's all heroism is, Dr. Walsh. Doing the right thing when it would be easier not to. Before Lena could respond, a commotion near the spaceport entrance caught their attention. A Cthar diplomatic shuttle was landing, unexpectedly and unscheduled. Security personnel immediately went on alert, but Lena stepped forward. "Hold your fire. I think I know what this is." The shuttle's doors opened to reveal Dr. Resva, accompanied by several Cthar medical officers, and surprisingly, Commander Christo himself. "Medical Director Walsh," the commander called, mandibles clicking in what Lena now recognized as nervousness. "We come with urgent purpose." Governor Landry tensed beside her. "Is this some kind of trick?" "No," Lena said confidently. "This is medicine in action." She walked forward to meet the Cthar delegation, consciously aware of hundreds of human eyes watching this unprecedented moment. "Commander," she formally greeted, "this is unexpected." Christak made the Cthar gesture of shocking the watching humans. The first exchange delegation was prepared to depart when we received disturbing news. A new pathogen has emerged in the border territories, affecting humans, Cthar, and Sigmian alike. Our separate medical knowledge is insufficient. Dr. Resve stepped forward, offering a data crystal. Early analysis suggests it exploits the commonalities between our species that you first documented. Medical Director, we require your expertise. Lena looked from the Cthar to the watching humans, suddenly understanding her unique position in this fragile piece. She wasn't just a doctor who had been captured in an alien war. She had become something new, a bridge between species who had more in common than they had differences. She turned to Governor Landry. "It seems my retirement will have to wait, Governor. We have work to do." The governor looked between Lena and the Cthar delegation, clearly calculating the political implications. Finally, he nodded. "Our medical facilities are at your disposal, Commander Christak. If this pathogen threatens all our people, then addressing it together is the only logical response." As humans and Cthar began the cautious process of cooperation, Lena found herself standing between Dr. Resva and Commander Kryak, a physical embodiment of the bridge she had helped build. "You know," she said conversationally, "when I was captured, I never imagined it would lead to this." "The Dominion does not believe in coincidence," Commander Christak replied solemnly. "You were meant to be on that battlefield." "I believe the humans have a saying," Dr. Resva added, "the right doctor in the right place at the right time." Lena laughed. "Close enough. And speaking of time, we're wasting it standing around being diplomatic. We have a pathogen to analyze, treatment protocols to develop, and 3 species to save." She clapped her hands together. "Resva, get your team set up in the main lab. Commander, I'll need all your epidemiological data. Governor, we'll need clearance for a mixed medical team to access all facilities." As everyone scrambled to follow her directives, Lena Rostova, former prisoner, reluctant diplomat, and most feared healer in the outer quadrant, smiled to herself. She hadn't chosen to become a legend. She'd simply refused to let anyone die when she could prevent it. And somehow, that simple medical principle had changed the course of interstellar relations. Not bad for Tuesday.